In October of 2016, Inti CEO paid for my meal at a Red Robin. As of the creation of this video, I have no ongoing relationship with Inti. However, Red Robin is currently a customer of my current employer, so the layers of corruption go deep, man. Crowdfunding is probably one of the biggest changes in the last decade in how games can get funded. Mighty No. 9 was one of the earliest projects to set in stone this new funding option, raising almost $4 million from tired and impatient Mega Man fans around the world. Nearly half a decade later, though, this spiritual successor to the Blue Bomber became one of the most scoffed at names in the industry. There are extensive records on how this Kickstarter campaign went wrong, but I was largely separated from that. Mighty No. 9 instead became my favorite Mega Man style game, despite the lack of the name. For some context, my childhood memories of the beloved Mega Man franchise largely came from the terrible DOS release, as well as a short dance with X while flipping through some ROMs on an emulator. As an adult, I did start checking out various games as they were reissued on digital platforms. I liked what I played, however when Mighty No. 9 was announced, I simply didn't care. There were dozens upon dozens of Mega Mans I hadn't and still haven't touched. It was just another drop on top of that. So outside of the internet drama regarding the anime fan on prom night trailer, I really didn't pay much attention beyond listening to the occasional bemoaning from friends about the project's direction. I had no concrete plans to buy Mighty No. 9, but a friend of mine had a spare PC copy. Thanks, Josh. I was aware of its reputation. Still, I like to try out games for myself, and Mighty No. 9 is a prime reason of why. By the end of the first few levels, I knew I'd be stuck defending it for the rest of my life, not only as a quality title, but as what I feel like is a true evolution of the Mega Man franchise. Mighty No. 9 is built around non-stop dashing. The main character, Beck, can repeatedly launch forward whether he's on the ground or in the air. It is essentially free and ends up being the primary form of movement. This does have an impact on the level design for platforming, but it's not just about navigating levels. After damaging an enemy enough, dashing through them causes Beck to absorb them, essentially dealing the final blow. This idea comes from what I call a cash-in system. Not only are you expected to perform, but at the end you have to dunk your body into the foe. It's a concept I've seen in some shooters where the player has to essentially tag a down foe to claim points. In Mighty No. 9's case, it's more about claiming buffs or staking out damage. Once stunned, an enemy is surrounded by an aura. Depending on the color, absorbing them will give an attack, defense, or speed boost for a limited time. The faster Beck reaches an enemy after they've been stunned, the larger percentage gained. Maxing the buff essentially gives you a period of time where the meter doesn't deplete. These buffs are not essential, especially for a casual playthrough, though considering its pace, it feels natural to keep moving while dashing through foes. Actually killing one through shots alone drastically slows things down. Unless it's a hefty fella, there's little reason to stop. Even if trapped in a room, the absorb mechanics heavily encourage rapidly moving back and forth between groups of enemies. It keeps a flow of movement in tight combat spaces, as well as requires precision to avoid undazed foes. This mechanic is also worked into boss fights, however in a simplified form. Once they've taken a certain amount of damage, dashing into them permanently removes that health. It requires pacing, so they're in a position where you can claim it. The longer it takes to dive in, the more health the boss regenerates. It keeps the player from mindlessly dealing out damage, although I wish there was more feedback regarding when this triggers. Most of the time, it's like somewhere around here. The reason why I find this feels like an evolution is that Mighty No. 9 gives an offensive purpose to the dash that I feel like Mega Man X1 as well as 2 lack. In that series, it's largely an evasive capability. X has no real reason to use it other than to run away once his firing spot has been compromised. Maybe this changes later in that series, and obviously the melee focus Zero has his own use for it, but nothing I've played feels uniquely in tune with every other core movement option like with Beck. Creating this flow is something in line with what Mighty No. 9's developer, Inti, did with Azure Striker Gunvolt. Every original mechanic is built to complement another, which creates a flow of non-stop satisfying moment-to-moment gameplay. Moving through the environment and dispatching foes feels weirdly effortless, as each action is like a satisfying click of a puzzle piece to your path through a level. Where this does fall apart are the weapons earned by defeating the mighty numbers. Everything else is so built around the base playstyle that switching to some of them rhythm interrupts that flow, like that weird dumb bulldozer skill. I get that this concept is essential to the Mega Man blood, but it feels like the weapons were thought up before Beck's movement was worked out. Speaking of keeping series tradition, some elements do feel dated, particularly with the choice of having some insta-kill situations. On a first playthrough, it's not uncommon to suddenly die from something, and hey, cool tip, go into the options, bump that life count up to 9, and you'll thank me later. I've seen these deaths as a point of controversy about the design. Maybe it's thanks to not coming from a childhood doused with a blue bomber, but those older games totally do the same thing. Once in a while things happen, like this door that can just shut on you next to. If those instant deaths are a bad design decision for you, I think that's fine. For me, it's always just been like dust your pants off and keep going. However, I'd be interested in hearing the argument of what makes this any different in Mighty No. 9 versus older Mega Man games. I will totally admit the hitboxes on these wheels? Kinda crappy. Though it's 2 times in one level with a checkpoint right at it, hardly a deal breaker. Again, don't forget those 9 lives. On the flip side, there is something Mighty No. 9 does that easily outpaces every Mega Man game I've played. It gives the individual stage bosses some personality through dialogue, along with a purpose post-defeat outside of their weapon. Sure, each Mega Man boss has its own quirks based off its visual design, and some extra material outside of the game to help flush out those elements. Mighty No. 9 feels like you're building a team. After defeating each mighty number, they'll join Beck's cause, as well as provide support on specific levels. Once all have been returned to his side, the combined team has a final assault on a factory producing evil robots. Is this implementation perfect? No. This room in particular? It's supposed to be an epic battle scene with all the mighty numbers, but it's just a big mess that's hard to digest. Though as a whole, it conveys a feeling of companionship that I haven't seen in any other Mega Man outside of the central cast, like with Roll, Zero, etc. Again, there are many releases I have not played, so this is simply based off my experience. One aspect that is hard to get away from are the platform-specific technical issues. I originally played on PC, which was smooth. The footage here has all been from the PlayStation 4 release that seems to have nothing beyond a few minor hiccups. I felt it only fair that I check out one of the worst versions, so here's the Wii U version, and you know what? It's not great. It's pretty bad. A lot of the information as to where Beck is located is lost. I will say I found it oddly playable, though I've enjoyed my fair share of titles with bad frame rates, so I'm probably the exception here. It's obvious this isn't the version you'd want to play. If this is the one you reserved, I'm very sorry. Even without the technical issues, the game isn't perfect. Just in this video alone, I've listed a handful of problems, but keep in mind, favorite doesn't always mean best. Castlevania 64 is my favorite Castlevania, yet if I had to pin the best, it would be Area of Sorrow. But I do think Mighty No. 9's become a popular punching bag and a way to vent out frustrations about Kickstarter promises that were botched. Personally, not being involved with that stuff makes it completely irrelevant to me. A lot of the complaints about the game are legitimate, but I question the intensity at which people criticize it.
That's more like it.